Welcome to the SoloCEOs, the podcast for solopreneurs by solopreneurs. Here we celebrate, commiserate, and problem solve all the world's craziness that comes with building a business on your own terms.
I'm Marilyn Johnson, a supplier development and supplier diversity consultant.
And I'm Tara Winston, executive coach and leadership consultant. And we are the SoloCEOs.
Yay!
And we are so happy that you're joining us today. Y'all, we have such a treat. Marilyn, who do we have that we're sharing with the team today?
Today we have Miss Ramona Thomas. It is such a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, Ramona. Thank you for taking time out. Let's just get right into it. Ramona, will you please tell everybody all the things that you're doing, title and everything, and then we'll get into detail, but share with our listeners just where you are and what you do.
Sure, Marilyn and Tara, thank you so much for having me. I am Ramona Thomas. I actually am a financial advisor in the New York City area. So I work with clients around comprehensive financial planning and investment advice. I really love helping people invest and figure out how to put their money to work for them. This is my third career. So how I came to this career, people often ask. I spent 18 years in the nonprofit sector, mostly in philanthropy, and really loved giving away money. I did that mostly in education, and it just really kind of fits who I am in terms of giving to good causes. But I got to a point in my career where I really wanted to do something different. And it didn't hit me until I started my business. That was my second career. That I had been entrepreneurial in my career in philanthropy. I was always hired to do the new thing. So I was hired to start the new grant program or the new department. And in my last position, before I started my business, I was actually hired to co-found and start a new venture philanthropy firm. So when I started my business, it hit me, you've been kind of starting new things for most of your career. So me starting a business, while it shocked some people, it wasn't such a surprise to me. And I went on to run an award-winning chocolate business, which I ran for 8 years before transitioning into what I do right now.
So can we pause right there and just let our audience know, award-winning?
She said that real smooth, like, oh, just a little award-winning chocolate business I started.
Right. But listeners, please hear loud and clear. Ramona didn't get to where she is today by just starting there. This is a journey, and we always talk about solopreneurism and entrepreneurism is a journey. It is not a one-shot deal. We're going to dig deeper into Ramona's journey because there's so many lessons. I mean, oh my God, there's so many lessons to learn, but I just had to selfishly say award-winning because this lady, she's the real deal. She has a lot to share with you, and she does everything to the nth degree, like top degree. So with that said, I know I stopped you, Ramona, but I just had to stop you a bit because we want to shout praises for all the things that you're doing with financial planning as where you are right now, but you are an evolving person, and 10 years from now, you might be doing a whole lot of other different things because I know somebody as creative as yourself, you just aren't satisfied resting at one spot. So with that said, let's talk about what's the top 3 highs of running a business. And it's kind of different simply because you've been in leadership positions with other organizations, you've run your organization, and now you're running yet another different type. And I know people have a hard time trying to leap between each one. Can you talk about some of the links and then some of the highs?
Yeah, I think for me, it's always been important to do the things that I love. I think we've all been in jobs or positions or roles that just, we knew it wasn't right? You get to the elevator bank in the morning, your stomach starts turning because you hate being at that place. And sometimes we blame it on the supervisor or the company, but it's usually because we just don't really love the work. There's something about the work we don't love. And so I think for me, once I realized the things that I really like to do, the things that I was really good at, for me, it was like, okay, it's a natural thing to kind of gravitate to the things that make sense to me. I should tell you, I'm a math person. I'm very analytical. Even when I try not to, I'm analyzing everything. So for me to be in an industry or field where, precision is important, details, like those things really matter to me. So understanding the kinds of skills that I'm good at and that I like to use, it took me a long time to get there. I probably was like in my late 30s before I figured it out. But when I started my business, the things that I loved about it, sort of one of the highs, and I'll kind of weave the answers to your two questions, is I just loved the space in this station in life. Like I loved the flexibility. So when I started my chocolate business, what people didn't know is I had been baking for like 20 years. I was the one who was bringing, baskets of sweets to work, or cake, or cookies to grad school, because I really loved baking from scratch and I read labels. So when I started my business, it was all natural chocolate. I felt so at home in the kitchen. That was how I actually came to start the business. I had taken a pastry class just for fun, and being in the commercial kitchen, my spirit felt at home. I was like, oh my gosh, pastry chefs get to do this every day, and I couldn't think about anything else. And so for the next few months, I worked on a business plan. I was taking classes and just really trying to perfect the craft. And so, the business was going to be a bakery business until I took my first chocolate class, and I fell in love with it. It was instant, which made sense because I've always loved candy, from a kid. So the business ended up becoming a sweets business, mostly focused on chocolate. But what really resonated with me, in addition to I love sweets and have a sweet tooth, was really the creative part of it, because I felt like up until that point in my life, I'd spent my entire career focusing on the analytical research left brain side. And while I had tried to develop the creative side, I had learned how to sew, and, you try to take different classes. I'm not really good at singing or playing an instrument or sports or anything like that. I felt like there was a part of me that was still underdeveloped. And so when I found like, oh yes, I'm going to run this business, it allowed me to really let my creative side flourish and to do things that I had only really dreamed about. So one of the highs for me and running the business was just sort of that space to create and to think of something new and to think about how I would be different in the marketplace, to do the research. I was still doing things that I loved, but it was in a different way. Just the flexibility too. When you're a solopreneur, solo CEO, you decide what your day looks like, right? You don't have someone else emailing you and stacking things on your desk saying what you're going to do. And so I really loved that space in my life, that space to create, to meet other people, like-minded people, and to really just grow the business. So that was a really big high for me. I think another was just growing the brand, right? So, it's one thing to say you're good at baking or you make a good whatever you make. For me, we were talking about toffee earlier. It's another to have your brand validated by other people. So one of the highs for me, another high for me, and this was huge. There's a scripture that says, let another man praise you and not yourself. And I really try to live that mantra, meaning you don't boast yourself. You let other people do that for you, right? So there's that humility. And so for me, it was so awesome to have people email me, like some of the testimonials that I got when I ran my business about the chocolates. And when I ran the business, I did a lot of custom events, custom chocolates for corporate gifting, like everything was custom for clients. And I loved creating for people. For me, it was such a great way to serve and to create things that were unique, that would allow people's events or their weddings or their special event to stand out, to make them look good. And so then to get those testimonials after, it was like not only did they look good, but everyone enjoyed, the chocolate or whatever. And so for me, that was a high to be able to master the craft, but then have other people enjoy it. And I would say the third high, there were a lot of other highs. I think the third one really ties into it. And for me, it really was always about service. Again, I came from a background in nonprofit and philanthropy. And so while I sold chocolate and it was make a living. There were a lot of things that I did around donating and working with nonprofits and working in my community and just being able to serve people and make people happy and bring joy to people's face. When I did have a storefront, and just sort of having my regular customers come in after a rough day at work or on their weekend, sort of being part of their lives that way, knowing that they were going to be happy when they left, that did something for me. And I think people who are in service industries understand what I'm saying. I'm having a hard time articulating it, but the service part and bringing joy to people's lives really mattered to me. And I'm glad that I was able to find something that did that.
That actually raises a great question, because I love how passionate you are and follow the things that you love. And that's a big, beautiful thing about being a solo CEO. I've often heard the flip side to it, like, I love making chocolate, and the people that I serve, I love serving them. But sometimes what they want is not what I want to make, right? And so sometimes you get that tension that people have when they're artists and they have a passion about something, that contrast between art and commerce. Did you have to struggle with that, and how did you resolve that?
Did. And a lot of solopreneurs are going to resonate with this. When you run your own business, people who love you have a lot of ideas. And a lot of my
Yeah.
friends had tons of ideas for things that I could do. And I'm like, okay, do they know like I'm only sleeping like 3 or 4 hours a night? But what I tried to do was balance it, right? So there were obvious home runs that people loved. But because I was in a product-based business, even though I did serve, I could rotate things out seasonally. You can do seasonal items, you can do one-time specials, based on what people like. So I would do things like that, just kind of rotate in items that people liked. But then I also did custom. So if a customer wanted something that wasn't on the menu and they were willing to order enough of it, too, I did a lot of custom things that were not profitable at all, just because I had a hard time saying no. Can you make this for me? And it'd be like, okay, because I loved baking and I love making chocolate. So that was kind of the compromise between the creative part and then the things that weren't really good sellers, but you have a handful of people who really like them.
Yeah. Yeah. But now, you know what? I know you've talked a lot about your chocolate business, but that service piece, it is the common thread from one of your roles to each one of your stops on your journey, because now as the financial advisor, that is a service, as there's a service aspect to that as well. So Ramona, I know you talk about the service aspects of what you were doing in your chocolate business, but there's that common thread between all of the things that you've done on your journey. How is that really playing itself out with you as a financial advisor?
It's huge because the ability to be able to relate to people, get them to trust you. I mean, we all know talking about money is often taboo, right? People are very guarded when it comes to talking about their personal finances. And I work with a lot of women who often carry a lot of guilt and shame about past financial decisions. So that service element in what I do now is essential. People are not going to do business, and this is true no matter what your business is. People don't do business with people they don't like and people they don't trust. And when you're talking about money, whether no matter what your service is, people are paying you for a service. It really matters how you make them feel. Do you understand their concerns? Do you understand, what's important to them? So that service element in what I do now is critical. Otherwise, I don't have clients. I don't have a business. And I work with a number of people who leave their advisors because of poor service. He didn't listen to me. She didn't respond to me. I asked a question, they never got back to me, or they talked down to me. They were very condescending. I asked the question and they made me feel stupid. So how you treat people really matters, no matter what your business, but especially in a service-based business.
And I think that's important, that people don't understand. You may have that one specialty, but no matter what, you got to share it out with the universe. And no matter what you're doing, people need to be able to understand exactly what's going on. So out of all of the things that you've done, what is some of your critical learnings, some of the 3 lessons that you would say, hey, if I shut down today, these are 3 things I know for sure as a business owner?
Get everything in writing.
Mhm.
Everything in writing. I mean, I
And
can't say I'm old enough to be part of the handshake generation, where people would do things on a handshake and a verbal promise. But I do believe your word is everything. But I've learned in business, people don't keep their word. And maybe it's intentional. Sometimes it may not be for, due to unforeseen circumstances. Get everything in writing. If you're contracting your marketing person, if you're working with an attorney, I don't care who it is, but as a business owner, if you're hiring people to do things for your business, for your brand, get it in writing. And the biggest lesson for me was with my contractor when we built out my retail store and production facility. We had a written agreement about what it was going to cost, but it was a verbal agreement on the time frame. And
Oh,
it was
wow.
a nightmare.
Oh,
It was
wow.
really a nightmare to get him to finish. And it was just, there were just a lot of awful things about that experience. And so I'm so much smarter now. If I ever deal with a contractor again, I know how to handle that situation so that, I don't lose money and you keep them on track. So just get everything in writing. That was a big lesson learned for me, especially when you're dealing with contractors of any sort. The other is stay on top of your finances. Now, what a lot of people didn't know, because people ask, hey, Ramona, how did you go from making chocolates to being a financial advisor? That's like a real big leap. I actually worked with the same advisor for 20 years who lives in Chicago, and he had such a profound influence on my financial life. That was one of the reasons I actually came into the industry, is because I really wanted to pay forward what he did for me. And so even when I ran my business, I had an advisor who was helping me think about taxes and who met with my CPA, like he was still on top of me as a business owner. And so even when I wasn't always on top of my business finances, because there were times where, like, especially busy season, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to reconcile my books this week. I'm going to do it next week, or I'm going to do it at the end of the month. Don't do it. Like, no matter how tired you are, stay on top of your books. Know what you bring in, know what you spend out, know what your expenses are, know what's profitable for you. If you're in a product-based business, know what your profitable items are. If you're in a service-based business, if you're selling subscriptions or different packages, know what the profitable items are. And I'm not saying you won't ever do the unprofitable ones. You might, because again, it may be that special of the month or a handful of clients who really need the service or the product, but at least know what it's costing you, and know that if you do what you need to do on your profitable items, that you can still make up, the difference. So just be on top of your financials. I work with business owners as clients who they come to me, they haven't filed taxes, they're afraid.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I haven't done my business taxes in 5 years. I'm like, and then they want a line of credit. I'm like, but we saw this last year, right? How many businesses, right? How many businesses run by people of color couldn't qualify for PPP loans because they didn't have the financial statements? I mean, just really basic things that they didn't have, that as a business owner, you should have. If you don't have financial statements, you are not running a business.
that's right.
I mean, you have to do it. If you can't do it yourself, there are a lot of accountants and bookkeepers out there, that don't charge a lot to just do your monthly books for you. So that is a huge, huge lesson, because I think it's really easy to fall in love with the craft, whatever your specialty is, and to say, I'll get to that. From the beginning, start separate bank accounts. Don't commingle the funds. Run your statements. That's the best way to build business credit. So stay on top of your money. Go ahead, Marilyn.
Now, let me ask you really quick, because like you said, you had a financial advisor and you stuck with your financial advisor for over 20 years. Tara and I just talked about just the other day about We Got a Guy, where we are able to find resources where you depend on. How did you find your financial advisor? How did you find the people that helped you, even though the contractor wasn't the ideal partner? How did you find these folks?
So I'll answer how I found my advisor. That was God. I mean, I think that's how I find most people. Like there are certain people in your path and certain experiences that lead you
Mm-hmm.
to the right person, or the right experience. Because sometimes it's not the right person. Like the contractor wasn't the right person, but he was the right experience, if you know what I mean. Because I learned a
Yeah.
lot and it cost me a lot. So that was the experience I needed to have to be able to share with others so they don't have to go through the pain that I went through, in building out a facility. But with my advisor, I met him. I had gotten it. I had filled out something with American Express at the time. They were American Express financial advisors, and about wanting to learn more about investing. And I was invited to this dinner in Greektown. I was living in Chicago, and there were these advisors, doing this presentation. He picked my name. Like you fill out the
Oh,
card, he
wow.
picked my name. And so again, I can't take any credit. But when I met him, and this is something about me, when I meet people, I do have a fairly discerning spirit, and we just connected. Like, so,
Mhm.
when you meet someone, there's something about, there's a spark, there's some way that you connect and you instantly trust that person and you feel like you can trust that person. Follow those instincts, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to be right. So the other thing that really connected was the first time I met with him, we closed down his office. Like I remember his office was like at Dearborn Station in Chicago. And he had spent so much time with me that they were turning out the lights. And I
Oh,
thought,
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
he was like, okay, Ramona, we have to go. But it was a testament to two things. One, we connected. Two, he heard me. He heard my questions, he heard my challenges, and he spent time. And that for
Mm.
me was everything. And I was young in my career. I didn't have a lot of money. I still had like student loan debt, credit card debt. I was very young in my career in philanthropy. But that he had spent the time, and I left feeling like, wow, I like him. And I was never gonna leave him ever. Like, it just, I would meet a lot of advisors. And I'm like, they just wasting their time, because I
Mhm.
knew what I had in him in terms of I felt like he made an investment in me as a
Yeah.
person and as a professional. And so it made it easy for me with everything. The first time I bought a home, when I wanted to buy a new car, he would look over my benefits, help me, decide when I needed to do a conversion. When I ran my business, he met with my CPA. Like we went and had breakfast, and it was so awesome, like sitting on the other side of the table watching the two of them decide, well, okay, if she needs more capital, she can take money from here, or she could do this, and this is how it's going to affect her taxes. And I thought, how great is that, right? That the two money men in my life are sitting down looking at making sure that I'm going to be okay. So that's how I found him. And then in terms of other professionals, I would say networking and referrals are really important. So people that you trust refer people that they trust. So be open to meeting other people. One of the other big lessons learned, and it wasn't on my list, but I had to learn how to ask for help. I was raised by a mom who was very independent, who taught us to be very independent, but also that asking for help is kind of a sign of weakness. Like you don't want to
Mhm.
be indebted to anyone. And it took me, that was a really big lesson learned as a business owner, that it's okay to ask for help and to be articulate and very specific about the kinds of help that you need. I'm always willing to help somebody else, but when it was time for me to help somebody,
Yeah.
someone to help me, it's kind of like, no, I'm okay, I got it, and then it was like, girl, no, you don't. You need help. Like you need help. And
Mhm.
and my friends, I think it was a lot easier to get my family, to help me first, and then friends. But then people, strangers now, like who offer to make introductions or who offer to do things. I was like, okay, it's okay. Like it is okay to
Yeah.
need and ask for help and to receive it. Like it's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign that there's something wrong with you. Like it's just how the world works. Like people need people. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And I don't want other solopreneurs and solo CEOs to struggle with that. Don't let pride get in your way. When you need help and people who are willing to help you, take it.
Well, so much of being a solopreneur is mindset, right? Like You spend a lot of time thinking about the mechanisms behind running a business, but mindset is a huge piece. The shift between I'm an independent woman, I don't need no help, to I'm willing to open for help. There's another mindset shift though that um, people struggle with, and it's the fact that I can evolve. You had 3 different careers, like having your identity as I'm the chocolate woman, and then saying, you know what, it's time for me to shift, and I have another dream that I want to pursue. How did you how did you make that mindset shift to do that?
So the last one was harder. Moving from philanthropy to chocolate was a much sexier story, right? It was just like, oh, the PhD who starts a chocolate business. Like that was a much easier, cooler story to sell. And yes, I was the chocolate lady for 8 years. Like seriously, that's what people called me. So moving from that to financial services was that mindset, that shift was a little different. One, because and even though I was a minority in chocolate, I still ran my own business. I didn't feel like it, but most chocolatiers are not women and they're not Black. I mean, just I'm going to be honest. And coming into financial services, it was really more noticeable, being in the room when you are the only one, and honestly, just, feeling like an elephant, like seriously, like an elephant. And it took a while, it was a lot, like a lot of journaling and a lot of, connecting, a lot of learning. Fortunately, I was in an environment that was very supportive, even in sort of being the only one, just still working with people who were really supportive and sincere and collaborative, in terms of my success. So in that sense, I'm very happy. But it definitely is, it definitely was it was a mindset, and I would say a mind shift too, just sort of closing my business and then working under a corporate umbrella. There were a lot of things I was happy about, not doing payroll, like all the things I hated doing in my business, not doing payroll, not managing the website anymore, all the operation stuff. It was like, oh, they have a form for that. I don't have to create it. Like, this is fantastic. So there was a reverse appreciation. I know a lot of people who leave corporate America, they are like, I want to do everything on my own. For me, coming back, I was happy to not have to do a lot of things on my own. But mindset is important. I think no matter what you do, the sort of belief in self, and I think that's a daily. I don't want to say a daily struggle, but I think it's a daily exercise that especially if you're a woman, if you're a person of color, I think it's no matter what your industry. I think there's always something that's going to come up in your life to make you think you can't, you shouldn't, you don't. And so the mindset of I can, I will, I should always has to be with us. Maybe I should just speak for myself. I don't know that others listening will feel that way, but I know I feel that way. That there always has to be something to remind me of the positive, because there's just so much negative in the news, on social media, and other circles. So that sort of the positive mindset is important. I think just in life, whether you run a business or not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ramona, when you talk about the mindset and how sometimes you walk in the room in all of your different careers, and a lot of times you're the only one, what motivates you to keep going? What's the drive behind that?
Okay, so this is very spiritual. Like for me, I may look like the only one, but I know who I bring with me. So, I pray a lot, and they're just in terms of like walking in faith and just really trusting that in every role I've ever had, that I'm in God's purpose for me. Like I really trust that even when it's hard, even sometimes I don't get it. I'm like, okay, I trust I'm supposed to be here until I'm not. And so that for me is huge, just trusting that I'm walking in my purpose at that point in time. And that whenever that journey is going to shift, whenever that road is going to turn somewhere else, that he's going to let me know. Okay, Ramona, like you've done this in this season, and now it's time for you to do this. And that's something that I it's just in me. It's not a muscle I spend a lot of time building, because it's just sort of who I am. Like, and I am one of those people, when it's time to move on, I don't look back on relationships, on jobs. Like I don't look back. I'm like, okay, whatever I was supposed to get, I got. And now I got to move on to the next thing. I got to bring whatever lessons learned, whatever relationships, whatever, whatever it is, I need to now harness that to prepare me for the next thing. So even in circles when I'm the only one, I still trust that I'm in my purpose, that I'm in that room because God has me in that room to do something, to say something, to hear something. And I just trust that.
That's
Wow.
that is a really good piece of advice. Like, I love when you said, I don't look back, just keep moving forward. And too often we find where people continue to try and second guess themselves. Like you said, you follow your gut, and then you can't spend any time because as you're running your business, you're moving really fast. Tell me, what was a lesson you learned the hard way, though?
Okay. And just for the record, I second guess myself too. I do. Like, even though I say I don't look back, it's like, well, I wonder if I had. And it's like, well, everything turned out the way it was supposed to. So there were a couple of lessons I learned the hard way. When I talked about getting everything in writing, I trusted people with money and situations, and people stole from me. And that was hard. Like, the whole stealing of money, I don't get. Like, I just don't get that. And so that was a hard thing for me, and in some ways handicapped me. Like, there was someone who I asked for help who stole from me, which left me in a not so good financial situation. It just left me with
Wow.
a bigger, I owed a creditor more than I should have, and double. And that hurt.
Oh
And
my God.
that really, it hurt and it sucked. And it was like, but that, lesson learned, right? So that was tough. So the sort of, being careful with money, and I had a whole bunch of other experiences that most people don't have. I was sued and was, in litigation for 2 years, and that was very costly. And so just the whole getting things in writing, it wasn't only about that contractor. I had some other experiences of where people made promises that did not bear true, and that cost me both time and money. I think the other big lesson for me was about, we hear the saying, people come into your life for, what is it, a reason, a season, a
Yeah.
lifetime.
Mhm.
And, there's a scripture in Ecclesiastes, it talks about there's a time and a purpose for everything under the sun, right? There's a season. And I didn't learn this until after I closed my business, about a year after I closed my business, but that in our lives, we have seasons for everything. So we have seasons for relationships, we have seasons for professional roles, and we have seasons for our business. Like, when I started my business, I thought I was going to be making chocolate until I was 75. Like, I just, in my life, I couldn't imagine anything else when I started, right? Because when you start, you just can't imagine doing anything else. And so I look back now and I think about the season of that iteration of the business was 8 years. And if I had known starting out that it was going to be 8 years, I would have enjoyed it more. Because there's seasons in there's a season in being a startup. And then there's a season when you're scaling your business. And then there's a season if you're in a business that's on autopilot, right? Where you're just kind of on cruise because it just runs itself. Even that's in a season. But if I had known it was going to be 8 years, there were a lot of things I would have done. I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Even the periods where it was really hard and I wasn't sleeping, like I was sleeping 2 hours a night because I was making chocolate 20 hours a day. Like, I would have enjoyed that a lot more because I would have known that the season was finite. It wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be. And so the big lesson for me is that everything has a season, and going in, we don't always know how long it's going to be, but it feels like it's going to be forever. When you're scaling your business and it feels like, oh, this is going to last a long time.
Right.
And it doesn't. It really doesn't. And so I would just enjoy the season, even when it's hard. And that's what I tell myself now in my financial services practice and my, business as a financial advisor. Even when it's hard, when you think you're going to get that client who just, you don't hear back from 3 months or whatever it is, like, enjoy the season, because I don't know how long it's going to last. And that was the biggest lesson I think I took away from running my chocolate business.
Like that is huge, right?
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, like, so much when we talk about being solo CEOs, it's a combination of building a business, however, whatever that means to you, but also the quality of life that you're living, right? And so enjoying the season really speaks to, like, wherever you are, you still get to to have some enjoyment out of that, practically, what does that look like, right? Because when I am on negative 2 hours of sleep and I'm covered in chocolate from head to toe, and you say, you know what, just enjoy this moment. I have probably some choice words that come to mind because I'm so stressed out, right? So when like now when you're in your rough times, what do you do that helps you kind of remember your present moment, enjoy it?
So I am a routine person. I am very much type A. I'm probably now type A minus. Like I think the business softened me up a little bit. But so I do need some routines. So one of the things I do every day, when I wake up, I read. Before I get out of bed, I read, and I read the Bible because I need something to ground me. Like the world is crazy around us. There are all these things like you put on the news, forget about it. You feel like we're doomed. So I always read something to keep me grounded, to keep me optimistic, to keep me, happy, and just, to not fly off the handle the first negative thing happens. I journal. So I started journaling when I near the end of my business, and just to get things out of my head, because I felt like I had so many things in my head, right, that you want to remember or tell people. So I started journaling, and so I have morning routines, and I work out every day. So I work out 6 days a week, and so that by the time I get to work and I start work, like no matter what happens, I've done everything that I needed to do for me.
Wow.
Mm.
You know what? That
It
is
took a while to
huge.
get there, though.
I mean, it's
Wow.
huge because it sounds like you've done a full day's work before you got to work.
It's not a lot. I mean, on a tight morning, it's a 30-minute,
Mhm.
if I have a leisurely morning, I can read for hours, at least 45 minutes to an hour. But until I get the thing that my spirit feels good about, like I try to find something I can lock in on, just something that I can remember throughout the day. But it took me a while to get there. When I was running my business, I would at least try to do I would read. So I couldn't do everything in the sequence that I have it now. I'd stopped working out because I was literally in the shop 20 hours a day. My friends would come to the shop to see me because I was missing all the girls' nights, dinners, and all of that. But I still read. So I would still read, and I would still talk to my friends. Like there were still things that I could do. I talked to my mom every day. So there were still certain things that I could do, and then I started the journaling. So I could read and journal. And then I remember one year the New York Times did like this 30-day workout challenge, and it was like really like 5 minutes a day. So I started doing that. I was like, okay, I could take 5 minutes to walk around the office and the shop, or, you could run in place. So I, slowly but surely I started adding, the routines, but I wasn't there. Like, so, and I would make trade-offs. Like earlier in the business, when I was growing the business, I would trade off sleep for working out, because I needed to work out. Like that was like, I needed to be at the gym. So I could go to bed at 2, be up at 5, and be at the gym at 5:30.
Oh,
But then I
wow.
got to the point where I was scaling the business where I couldn't do that. I needed sleep more than, so I think part of it is knowing what grounds you, what centers you. For some people, for mothers, it may be just time with their children. For, people who are married, I'm single, it may be, time with your partner. So different people need different things to ground them. So just, I would say, just know what those things are. And then, add one. So often you got that one mastered, add another, until you get to the point where you have a routine. Some people are not morning people. I have a friend who works out after work. So just making sure, it may be what you need. It comes at the end of the day. You know what I mean? For me, I need it at the beginning. My friend, she needs it at the end. So just kind of know your own biorhythm, like, what time of day you need it, and then know what the it is, and build from there.
Man,
That
I'm
is
taking notes on this.
right. It's like that's super important
Mhm.
because when you talk about just continuing to stay in your spirit and recharge, clearly you are starting your day off on a high, usually with your reading and your working out. And so I commend you on that, Tara. So next time, Tara, you talk to me,
Oh Lord,
fine.
is that the promise you're making? So
I'm not making any promises.
listeners, I now have Ramona. You are now a witness. I now can harass her on a daily basis about what she did and didn't do. That's the permission she just gave me, I heard.
By that time, listen, by the time you talk to me, Ramona will have done her workout, read about 2 hours, been in the office for about 2 hours, and you'll be calling me, asking me, are you up yet, lady?
All right. I'd be like Ramona be done made some chocolate on the side. I mean, like, yes. By the time I get around to calling you, that's fair.
No, but let me reiterate though, it took a while to get there. My friends, and I'm gonna be honest. When I was in the throes of, the shop and really burning out. So the reason I could say that now is because I burned out. I experienced burnout and it was terrible. I had gained weight. I was not healthy. Like I had some, physical issues, like real physical issues that because I wasn't eating healthy, like there were a lot of things that had deteriorated in my life. Not working out, not eating healthy. I was eating cupcakes for breakfast because I was in the kitchen all the time. It's like, well, I don't have time to go get something to eat. And so I wasn't eating healthy. And I remember there was a Thai place across the street that would deliver. But other than that, I mean, it just got to the point where I really wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't eating healthy. I mean, it was bad. And so I don't want somebody listening, I'm talking to somebody who's listening right now, who's in that space. Mm-hmm. They're not sleeping. They're really stressed out. And you think if I just get over this hurdle, it'll get better. It doesn't. Like you really have to be intentional. And it took a friend actually who helped me. And she said something to me, one of my really dear friends, close friends, after I closed. She said something to me that I didn't get at the time, where she's like, there was a level of suffering that before you closed your business. And I hadn't thought about that. Had I struggled? Absolutely. I don't know that I would have used the word suffering, but when she said it, I was like, yeah, there was. And so I don't want anyone listening who may be moving from struggling to suffering, don't stop, put a pin in it and figure out how to go in the opposite direction. So.
Wow.
That's huge.
And I want to reiterate, like, even the strongest of us go through burnout. Like we can get in those spaces and you can pull yourself back out of it. There is no shame in it. And it happens in a lot more stories than I think anyone cares to even discuss. And Ramona is proof positive that you can pull yourself out of it and triumph on the other side. That's phenomenal. So, one of the things that we believe very heavily in and with the Solo CEOs community is supporting each other, right? And you have just poured so much into us. We would love to support you. What is some way that we all could support you? How can we help?
I can't really think of anything. I mean, honestly, I like meeting people and I like connecting with people. So if any of what I said resonates with people who are starting their business or, ramping up or just not sure of next steps, like I've transitioned careers twice. I am a just kind of walk in faith and not by sight person that's just sort of trust. So, people who might need a little courage, like just whatever. If anyone wants to connect with me, just please feel free, to do that. You can find me on LinkedIn. But at this point, I can't really think of a specific need, that I have, either in my financial practice. Every once in a while, people are like, are you going to start making chocolate again? I think about that. I do. I think about it mostly because I miss that space that I talked about. I miss being in the kitchen, putting on music and just making truffles. I don't miss being exhausted, but if I can find a way of bringing that back as a healthy hobby, and when I say healthy hobby, meaning that I don't get consumed by it, it doesn't consume me. I can do it once a month and have fun. I might do that. But, other than that, I just would love to be part of your community. Like if there's a way that you guys continue to think of me and involve me in events, and if there's any way that I can support others who are part of your community, that would be help enough for me.
That sounds wonderful. Are you accepting new clients?
So yes, I am taking new clients and I do a complimentary consultation. So if someone just wants to, just kind of get some things out of their brain, get a second opinion, maybe you're working with someone, you're not sure you're in the right financial situation, just, anything like that. I'd be more than willing to listen. That's usually what I do, is just listen and ask a lot of questions. So absolutely.
Nice.
Wonderful. How can people find you?
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm not active on a lot of other social. I do have Facebook and Instagram, but I rarely check them. But LinkedIn's a great way for people to reach me, Ramona Thomas. I think it might be Ramona S as in Sam Thomas on LinkedIn. You can email me, like just anything, connect with me, whatever. That's probably the best place for people to reach me.
And Tara, we'll have Ramona's information in this session description as well. So
Yep,
people
in the show
can
notes.
find you there in the show notes. Yeah. Now, Ramona, you have answered this. Well, I'm gonna ask you again, but I think you've already answered. We always ask, because it's always about my work, my way, even when we play. And so what ways do you play outside of your reading and your working out, and once in a while making chocolates for yourself?
So I used to travel. And this is how, again, going back to where I was in that tough, like that state of my business. So years ago, over 2 decades ago, I promised myself every year I was able, financially and time-wise, I would travel to a new place. And so I've traveled to, 5 continents. So I love traveling, and I'm looking forward to doing that in 2022. I'm okay kind of laying low for the rest of this year to kind of see how things work out with the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But I'm really excited to go back to South America and the Caribbean. So I love traveling. I spend a lot of time with my family. I moved back to New York. After I closed my business, I left Chicago, and it's been great to spend more time with my family. So I play, we cook dinner every Friday. Like, I just enjoy spending time with them, walking with my dad, hanging out with my mom. We binge watch, shows on Netflix and things, just regular people things. I'm trying to get a little more active outside. So I'm having my bike fixed, and I really want to spend some time riding my bike this summer. And then I'm a foodie. I just love spending time with people when I'm able. So however that makes sense with whoever I'm spending time. So whether it's coffee or lunch, usually dessert. I love trying cafes and ordering chocolate, still eat a lot of chocolate in the afternoon.
I would have never guessed you like dessert.
Oh yeah, I know, right? So that's kind of how I play with family and friends, again, I'm looking forward to international travel again, and that's it.
Well, that's a lot. That is a lot. And you have given us a ton of information. Tara, I'm about to cough, so will you please share the rest while I cough?
See, organic type of conversation is what we have. Ramona, thank you so much for joining us. This has been phenomenal. Everyone, I want to echo what Ramona said. Get on LinkedIn, connect with her, connect with us, right? So Marilyn and I, the Solo CEOs, we are the Solo CEOs on all the social medias. Stop by our website. Right now is the Solo CEO Summit. New one coming soon. But come to our website to see Guru Talks, and we've got other conversations like this and other resources. Stay connected. Like Ramona said, our community is so important. We all need help, and for whatever the next phase of Ramona's career, our careers, or your career, we are here for it. Thanks for stopping by, and talk to you soon.
Bye. And I'm not coughing, thank God.
Thank you again for having me. This was incredible.
This is fun.
Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the Solo CEOs, please share this podcast with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest, you can follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram at the Solo CEOs, or stop by our website for videos, resources, and other great stuff. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.